Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you today on this tag Wednesday. It was supposed to be a tag Tuesday, but it got clean away from me. So I'm doing a tag on Wednesday instead. And this is the spring cleaning book tag, which I saw on Bill Rutenberg's channel, the Rutenberg Library. But I think it was created by, I think he mentioned it was created by someone named Book Syrup, and that the original video is not available anymore. So I'll leave a link to Bill Rutenberg's channel. You should go and watch it anyway. It's a wonderful channel. And it's all about the ritual of spring cleaning, which for me is always prompted by a rise in temperature. And as I may have mentioned in a previous video or two, there has been no rise in temperature here in Boston. It's freezing cold. It's bright and sunny, but it's freezing cold. And so I haven't had any inclination to do spring cleaning. Who wants to do spring cleaning with gloves on? But as I've also mentioned in videos, the actual axial tilt of the planet itself is changing. And that by simple physics, that has to lead eventually to a tiny window of at least incrementally warmer weather here in Boston. It has to. That has to happen. At some point, that has to happen. Granted, we had a snowstorm in mid-May, and it's freezing cold. 3 blankets on the bed, sweatshirts, gloves, knit hat on outside, the whole 9 yards. But that has to change at least a little. So maybe I will get in some spring cleaning. I would hope so, because I have a couple of projects in mind. In addition to all the random spring cleaning that you always do. One of the projects that I have in mind involves this very room. There is a long closet in this little book room. This little book room is a square, but it has a long, deep, tall closet jutting off it. Something you can walk into for several steps before you get to the back wall of it. That I have always had just walled off. I just closed the door to it. I had nothing in it, and I just closed the door to it and walled it off and just made this room a square. Because it was neater that way, it seemed to me, and also because I've always had a distrust of closets. They gather junk. And if you know that already, why would you invite that process? I've never been anything but unhappy with them, so I thought, I don't need it. I don't need the storage. I don't have enough clothes to store. I don't have enough clothes to hang. I don't have enough garbage all around the place to pile up in one place or anything like that. But then recently I thought, well, yes, you don't use it as a closet, but it's still a waste of space. There's a huge amount of space. A third of the collected space of this room is in that closet. It seems like a waste to have it there and not use it for anything. So I opened it again. I rearranged the room a bit so that I could open the closet, and thought, well, what I'll do is I'll sweep it out, I'll mop it out, and then I will fill it with sheets and blankets and pillows and use it as a kind of reading space, another reading space, a nice secluded reading space. And I had that already. I had pillows and blankets and foam and whatnot in there to make it nice and comfortable to lay on. But it turned out that Frida, my little schnauzer, who's trying to act like she doesn't want to be on camera. Oh, who are all those people? Who are all those people? The Frida fan club. They love you. They think you're the best. They do. So do I. So do I. You're the best. Oh, you're the best. Oh, so baby. It turned out, I discovered that nothing I could do would induce her to go in that closet. Nothing. I went in without her and called her in. I carried her in and set her down on my lap so that I could say to her, look, the surrounding is a little bit unusual, but you know where you are. You're with me. So you don't have anything to worry about. No. No, none of that. I tried putting her in there without me. I tried it all. She knows what she likes, and she likes what she knows, and that extends to even other rooms here at Hyde Cottage. There are rooms that she doesn't particularly like to go into because she's never done that or whatever. It's not a neurotic dog. I had a neurotic dog for 16 years. I had a pointer who was badly neurotic, afraid of everything. Frida is not neurotic. She has none of those traits whatsoever, but she has no interest in adding to her repertoire. She knows what she likes, and she likes what she knows. And once I saw that that wasn't just temporary, once I saw that that was actually just a decision on her part, no, I will not voluntarily go into this enclosed space, well, then I realized that I don't want it as a reading nook. I'm not going to want to spend any time in there without her. I put her down on the floor just now, And she moved from where I put her so that she could lean her little body, her 10-pound body, against my ankle on the floor right now. We're always with each other. So I have no interest in a reading nook if she's not going to be in there with me. So I had to redraw the plan, right? I had to redraw the plan. So I realized, okay, much as I might have wanted it for a reading nook, that idea is gone. Your loved ones take precedence. If your loved one says no, then the answer is no. So I pulled out all the blankets, I pulled out all the foam, I pulled out all the curtains, all the pillows and sheets and whatnot. And now it's just a bare, empty closet again. And I thought, well, okay, she doesn't want to go in there. You might as well close it up again. No, I'm thinking, no. Maybe try something else. Okay, you won't be spending any time in there, but maybe there is a kind of storage that you could do in there. Maybe more organized, more accessible, no junk, everything right where it should be. That maybe would be a way, would be off the floor elsewhere in the house. So I'm going to try that. That is my first spring cleaning project if it ever warms up in Boston. I say if because I personally, after that mid-May snowstorm, I no longer believe that it will. Even though I know the science, even though I know this planet has an axial tilt, I still don't believe it. So we shall see. If it ever does warm up in Boston, that's going to be the first thing I do. And this tag, the prompts in this tag are all about that. They're all about spring cleaning. So let's see. Number one is the struggle of getting started. I would like nothing better than to get started. I would like nothing better than to not be bundled up every single minute of every day. A book or book series that you have struggled to begin because of its size. And for me, the size factor here is not the book, but the series. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there was a booktuber named Pints and Paperbacks. He was a co-host of mine for the Marsathon reading group, where we read the Mars novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs. All of my co-hosts for Marsathon have disappeared. They don't make videos anymore. Haven't done them in, it's been 10 years at least. But once upon a time, when Pints and Paperbacks made videos, back when BookTube was available on the far end of the dial on your television, and you had to work the rabbit ears to get it to come in just right, he was a big fan of a series called Warhammer 40K. The world, the role-playing game, and also the books. And the videos that he made about them were really interesting. They made it seem like a really interesting, gigantic, imaginative world. And I looked into it a little and realized it's incredibly daunting. There's a huge amount of information there. But it looks to me, from looking around, like a novel called Horus Rising is the place to start. I just haven't done it yet. It seems like Horus Rising, it looks to me like that's the place to start for Warhammer 40K, but not at all the place to end. It looks like it just goes on. The reading goes on and on from there. So I've been a little hesitant to start. I will, though. I'll start this summer. Then prompt number 2 is cleaning out the closet, which ironically I did, not once, but twice. A book and or a book series that you want to unhaul. And there are plenty. There are plenty that I do. One of the only real inconveniences for me of quarantine is that I have been unable to dispense with books. I've been able to accumulate some, but I haven't been able to dispense with them as much, and I would like to do that. Book sales, yard sales, charity shops. A friend of mine owns a church and is always welcome to take donations. None of that stuff is possible. I'm hoping that it will be in the summer or the fall. I'm hoping that it will be, but it's not yet. So there are any number of books that I want to unhaul. Although maybe I shouldn't be so quick to do that, because my acquiring is all electronic now. There are no stores, there's no browsing, so maybe I shouldn't be quick to unhaul books. Maybe I should keep everything I have. And prompt number 3 is opening windows and letting fresh air in. I would love to be able to do that. Love to. I have no idea how the trees and the lilacs are surviving this cold. A book that was refreshing. And for me, it's a book called Majesty, only it's spelled in the 16th century way. Majestie. And it's by David Teems. And it's about England's King James I of England, Queen Elizabeth II's successor. And it's wonderful. It's very smart, very gamely written. You won't stop reading. It doesn't read like a normal, stuffy, scholarly royal biography. But more than that, it is a soup to nuts redressing of James's reputation, which is terrible. And really opened my eyes to the extent to which I was buying into that reputation merely through the propaganda of later writers. The call in all cases for biography should be ad fontes. Go back to the sources. What do the sources actually tell you about this person? And if the sources are unanimous in hating this person, are the sources all people who hated him? So all sorts of considerations like that. Majesty is just wonderful in clearing the plate for James the First, and I wish I still had a copy. I don't have a copy. I wish I did. I don't think I ever even got a finished copy of Majesty. I had a reader's advance copy, a review copy, but I don't think I ever even saw it in a finished copy. And I don't think I've ever seen it in a bookstore. But it was really, really good. I strongly recommend it. Then question number 4 gave me trouble. Question number 4 was washing out sheet stains. Not that part. I wash my sheets regularly. Oh my, though. Reading this prompt made me a little wistful because for 3 years, the 3 years that I started BookTube, for 3 years, I was washing bed sheets and turning mattresses and cleaning floors all the time, several times a day, because my 2 old dogs were growing more and more incontinent. And by the end, they were completely incontinent. They weren't even aware that they were going. And there was no way they'd spent their whole life sleeping on the bed with me. There was no way I was going to banish them to the floor when they were already alarmed and feeling sick. So that was a constant thing, just constant. It's such a change now because Frida doesn't have any problems like that at all. She can go 15 hours without even thinking about going outside, and she wouldn't go inside for all the mud in Egypt. Wouldn't do it at all. So, but no, the thing that gave me problem was the prompt, which is a book you wish you could rewrite a certain scene in. And I guess I'm not wired like this because although there are plenty of books that have scenes that I don't like, I would never wanted to rewrite them at all. And that thought never crossed my mind. So I'm just going to punt on this one and go on to the next one. Prompt number 5 is throwing out unnecessary knickknacks, which I love to do. I do it every year at the end of the year, but I also do it in spring cleaning. I do it sometime around May or June. I love it because it is so refreshing to Marie Kondo your crap. It is so refreshing. Like, for instance, junk drawers in the kitchen or in the living room. There'll always be that one drawer that just fills with miscellaneous stuff. I remember one year, about 10 years ago, I had a drawer like that, and it was full to the brim with just tangles of stuff that I didn't need. I would have had to lay it out on the floor and figure out what all of it was. And that year, I brought a garbage bag over to that counter. I pulled that drawer not only out, but off its runners and out of its alcove, tipped it sight unseen upside down into that trash bag, and threw it away. So I put an empty drawer back in there, and I have yet to this day to know what I threw out. Nor to this day have I missed it, which is the whole point of that sort of thing. Just get rid of it all. Go through your shelves and just get rid of stuff. Go through your drawers and get rid of stuff. Just go to the cabinets underneath the sink and just get rid of stuff. Get rid of the stuff that you haven't used in forever. I don't apply it to books, but I apply it to everything else. I'm looking forward to doing it. But the prompt is a book in a series that you didn't feel was quite necessary. And I'm going to go here with Hannibal Rising by Thomas Harris, the author of Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon, and Hannibal, who wrote this book, I believe, under some sort of editorial duress. I think he was told, look, the studio bought the rights to this book in order to make Silence of the Lambs and in order to make Hannibal. They have the rights to this character, and we want a new Hannibal Lecter book. Now, if you don't write it, someone else will, and you can sue us, but you'll lose. Your lawyer won't even take the case because we own the rights. And I think that might have been the reason, but one way or another, there are all sorts of options that he could have taken. Instead, he gave us the origin story of Hannibal Lecter, his childhood and young manhood. And the only way that you would ever do that would be to generate sympathy. And the book tries ham-handedly, ineffectively, to generate sympathy at many points. And you can't generate sympathy for someone you've already established is a psychopathic serial murderer. So, I mean, there are lovely bits in it, but it didn't work at all. It was totally unnecessary. You don't need a sympathetic backstory for Hannibal Lecter. Readers are already fascinated by him, but they're not supposed to like him, are they? Is that Thomas Harris? Is that what you're saying? You want your readers to like this guy? Anyway, that would be my candidate. Then prompt number 6 is polishing the doorknobs. I guess this happens. All the doorknobs here are wood, so there'll be no polishing of doorknobs here. A book that has a clean finish. And for me, I've mentioned it before, this is Victor Hugo. His book that's typically called in English The Hunchback of Notre Dame de Paris, which is a ruthlessly controlled plot from start to finish, including the ending. It has 4 or 5 different endings. They are precise and perfectly done. Totally different, a world away from the wandering gaseous anomaly that is Les Miserables. So that gets my note every time. The endings, the structure just in general of that book is always a marvel to me. Uh, then prompt number 7 is reaching to dust the fan, the ceiling fan. Mine has not been on in 10 months. Uh, and they do gather cooties. You want to dust them, but you want to be careful about it. For me anyway, I always have to put on a mask if I'm going to dust the blades of the ceiling fan, because otherwise I'll be sneezing and coughing for days. A book that tried too hard to relay a certain message. And for me, I'm going to pick a book by the physicist Sean Carroll called Something Deeply Hidden. It came out last year. I think I reviewed it, or tried to anyway, where he takes a thought experiment from quantum mechanics, from quantum physics, called the many worlds hypothesis. There's a famous quantum physics experiment, a demonstration that seems to imply that some input from the original stimulus of that experiment is indicating an alternate universe, a place that where our physical laws apply, but it isn't the place that you're actually observing. I've never thought. I have a hard time wrapping my head around quantum physics just to begin with, but that part of it has always struck me as just elaborately unsupported. It just you're positing an entire alternate universe from one detail of one experiment that you don't understand. That seemed to me to be the mother of all imaginative leaps. And in this book, Sean Carroll does a great job of explaining quantum physics, quantum mechanics, especially the phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. He does a great job of explaining that, a great job of elucidating the famous thought experiment of Schrodinger's cat. Better job of elucidating that than anything I've ever seen. But he also insists on the many worlds. He doesn't insist on it as a possibility. In this book, he insists on it as a reality, says that it certainly exists, that these demonstrations prove it, and that it has to be just accepted. And I didn't accept it at any point in the book. I don't believe it in the slightest until you can show me an alternate universe. The fact that information appears to be disappearing or appears to be duplicating in ways that you can't understand means that you can't understand it. It means there's something wrong with the demonstration. Not that we've stumbled upon the idea that there's a universe out there where Spock has a beard. I don't believe it. Until you show it to me, I don't believe it. I think that's supposed to be the idea behind science, right? But so that part of Something Deeply Hidden, I just thought went too far. I didn't believe that part of it. Sean Carroll did not make that case to me. Maybe he would to his fellow physicists, but I think the book was pitched to ordinary people, and I'm an ordinary person when it comes to quantum mechanics, and I didn't get that at all. And then prompt number 8 is the tiring yet satisfying finish to Spring Cleaning, a book series that was tiring yet satisfying to get through. And for me, it'll be a series I've mentioned a few times before, The Emberverse by S.M. Stirling, which starts with a novel called Dies the Fire, which I recommend to all of you. And at the beginning of Dies the Fire, we meet a small cast of characters going about their normal business in the Pacific Northwest, when suddenly there's a flash in their minds, bright, painful light that's so fast that it's over almost before they can feel the pain. And when that is over, advanced technology doesn't work anymore. Trains come to a halt, planes fall out of the sky, transistors don't work. Even gunpowder, when you strike it on a rock, it flames up for a moment and then dies down. The laws of physics appear to have been changed so that complex technology is no longer possible. And according to S.M. Stirling, just follows this storyline out. He says that big cities, for instance, would immediately become death zones. He pictures that the suburbs around those big cities would become places that sustain themselves briefly through savagery and cannibalism. And that the people in the Cascades Range of the Pacific Northwest would, due to their more rural, less technology-dependent lifestyle, might have a chance at surviving and banding together and forming some sort of primitive new society. And it Dies the Fire begins that storyline. It's a very good beginning. It's already a little bit weird to read because Dies the Fire was written before the internet really took off as a factor in daily life, a factor altering everything, a factor that all of us know. So these characters are already in an alternate timeline. Talk about many worlds. They're already in a timeline because the Emberverse does not give you a picture of what our world would be like if it lost higher technology, because these characters aren't losing the internet. And that would be a huge part of such a story if you were to do that today. So, but the story goes on. Dies the Fire has a sequel, and then we follow the same groups of characters, the same cast of characters, one evil, two good, as they grow and find more people. And I'm thinking, I got to like book 5, I think, is Meeting at Corvallis, a very good book with a thrilling fight at the end. And then I was thinking, okay, well, but but you do have to end this, right? I mean, it's all fun to have adventures and watch how these characters rebuild an essentially quasi-medieval world. But sooner or later, the point of this story is that you're going to have to tell the story. And the story is not how they adapt to the change. The story is what caused it, right? That is the story of these books. The rest of this, as entertaining as it is incidental. And yet the incidents kept on coming. We follow those characters as they get older. They have children. Then we follow the children as they get older. All having adventures all along the time, adding new characters as we go along, but never really getting to... What's the matter, baby? Huh? What are you poking me for? Huh? You want some attention? You looking for attention? Huh? Oh, you want me to stop talking to the humans, don't you? So we can go out. That's what you want. Oh, well, okay. Okay. All right. Just let me finish up, and then we'll go. Where will we go? Deep into the woods? Yeah. Maybe we'll do that. That's why she's poking her nose at my leg. I'll just finish up with my rant, and it is abbreviated rant, because I want to do a read along of the Emberverse books and talk about them at great length. But S.M. Stirling frustrated me the more that series went on. He's a very good writer, very entertaining writer. So I was reading happily every book that came out. There were like 20 of them. And I was reading happily, but the whole time I'm thinking, okay, you're now on almost your 3rd generation since the planes fell out of the sky, and you still haven't explained. You still haven't told the story. You're telling all these incidents, but not what happened. And eventually, the Emberverse series seems to end. I think the last one that came out is going to be the last one. I'm pretty sure there aren't going to be any others. So by the end, I was tired of the Emberverse. I was enjoying them. I love the books, but by the end, I was tired. I wanted far more closure. This, like so many fantasy and science fiction series, this should have been a trilogy. Heresy, I know, but it should have been a trilogy. Would have brought out the best in an already good author if it had been a trilogy, but it was not. But anyway, and then that's it. That is the spring cleaning book tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people. And I tag Roz at Scallydandling about the books. She just did a couple of my tags, so she's ready for more. I tag Jason at Byways and Bookland. I tag Hannah at Hannah's Books. And keep in mind, when you're doing this tag, I filled mine with plenty of nosy personal details about my own spring cleaning rituals. Might be nice if you did the same. Let's see here. Rachel Morrow, Todd's Berksling Bookcase. If you are familiar with spring cleaning, feel free. And David Murphy. I'd love to hear. Eventually, spring will arrive even at Winnetonka or whatever snow-infested western province he happens to live in. I'm happy to hear the answers to this. And that is it. That is the... And of course, Britta. Spring eventually comes to Germany, doesn't it? I seem to remember a song to that effect. So feel free to do this as well. That is the spring cleaning book tag. It's a day late, but sorry about that. I will try to remember to post this. And I will wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.